Are we live? Yes, we're live. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Talking Niagara this morning. It is Wednesday, 5th of March this morning. Morning. And all day, of course. All right.
Morning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So. All right. Let's just send that off. Right. Okay. Just getting to this. Okay. Listen, learn, and lead. A lecture series by Niagara Falls Anti-Racism Committee. Right. This is the first of our items. This is something that was put up by Laurie Lococo yesterday on Facebook. And it's actually a series that's going to be happening at the exchange. I forgot what the name was called for a split second, right? And you can get tickets through the link down beneath, right? And putting that up so that everybody's aware of it. So there you go.
The anti-racist committee.
Yeah, this is a yeah, exactly. Anti-Racism Committee, and there's tickets available on Eventbrite. Okay, so follow that link.
Well, as I've said before, the anti-racist committee has nothing to do with the modern racist problems we're having, and the modern ethnic divides we have between our new Canadians. They bring their own hatreds and with them. And we're still focused on our old ones that we do, our kind of racist views towards Indigenous peoples, Black peoples, that kind of thing. I think we've got a pretty good hold of those, although it takes generations for them to go away. But what I'm more concerned about is the more modern racism that happens among new Canadians.
Yeah,
and it might be worth just going there to see if they even address that kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, up to when we put these things up, it's not necessarily because we agree with them. It's not necessarily because we have any view on these things. It's just a local event, and we just like to inform everybody of them. Well, good morning there, Mike Cushman.
Morning, Metaphysical Mike. What's going on, brother?
Yep. Okay. So moving on from that, we talk just generally.
Oh, can I just say something here?
Yeah.
Last night I was at the Sabres game.
Okay.
Sabres versus the San Jose Sharks. It was probably one of the worst NHL games I've ever seen. In fact, I would say that it was probably the worst game I've ever seen in the NHL in my entire life. These look like a couple of Junior A teams playing. Although I will say that the Sharks looked a lot better than Buffalo did. Buffalo's defense is terrible. Their offense is even worse. It's great to watch an NHL game, and I had great tickets. My son had won an a silent auction for $350 Canadian. He'd got about $1,500 worth of value. We had 4 seats in really like 16 rows up from the goal in the one end, and so four tickets and VIP parking to boot. It was great. And we went, and later, after just before the game, we went to we had dinner. We left early. I noticed at the border that the Canadians were checking trucks coming in, and there was a long line of trucks trying to get over the border at that particular time, and there were border services checking the trucks, and that was slowing it down.
Yeah.
Going over was no problem at all. When we went to the arena, it was no problem. My son, we went to the casino. There's a little casino close by there. We went there, and my son won $300.
I've seen that casino. Yeah.
it's a nice casino. It's nicer than the big ones we have here. Like, it's easier to hang around. It's wide open. It's not kind of placed in a way that it's hard to find your way in and out of it.
It's almost as if you can take a you can take a break, run across the road, do your bets, and then run back again.
Well, my son won $300.
Yeah, good for him.
$300, which is about, it was worth over 400 Canadian dollars, and he paid $350 for the seats, and that was
free seats, love it.
Yeah. So it worked out pretty good. And what I like to say that during the anthem, so the Canadian anthem came up first, and Canadians were singing it, and there was only one or two catcalls against the Canadian anthem. There was one guy right behind me, right behind us, and my son, kind of called him out on it, and then the guy shut up really quick. He turned around and kind of like pushed his fist up, and the guy shut up like quick and said, and stopped. But there was only one. But when the American anthem came on, after the anthem, the singer did a great job on it, and there was a huge cheers for that, as was the Canadian anthem, and the huge cheers. And I always smile because the melody of the Star Spangled Banner is a British drinking song. So when it came to put the music, or the poem, the Star Spangled Banner, to music, they chose a British drinking song, which is a difficult song to sing. It was made that way to test the singers, particularly after they've been drinking, because it was a drinking and singing club that wrote that melody, and so every time they sing it and they cheer it, I always laugh, because it's a drinking song that they're celebrating. Anyway, there was no real friction. There was nothing said like that except one idiot, and all the Canadians, they behaved themselves. Of course, it was mostly Canadians in there, and they behaved themselves very well, and they didn't boo any anthem, and so that was encouraging.
Yeah, exactly. Because whatever the disputes are between the governments, don't dispute it with the American people, because remember, 50% of the 49 point whatever percent of those who voted against Trump.
Yeah, so there's lots of mixed feelings across there. Although, I don't know if it was just my imagination, but during the anthems, I felt there was might be a little bit of tension. I would have been embarrassed if we booed the U.S. national anthem. I would have been embarrassed, but the Canadians did not do that. And like I said, or at least I didn't hear any.
Yeah. So everybody remained standing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So one of the things we talked about very briefly yesterday was about UK and France wanting to send peacekeepers to Ukraine. And basically what they're looking at here is Starmer is actually talking about Keir Starmer is talking about work. He's been working with the French. That's a damn miracle. Right. He's been working with the French, been building a situation whereby they're looking to actually get a peace deal for Ukraine, an independent peace deal. And they're basically saying that any deal that they do must have the backing of Trump, must have, as America being a reliable ally of France and Britain, and therefore they're looking for America's backing, of course, in any peace deal.
Well, the thing is, what they've pointed out, that they can't They can't do what the United States can do, at least not now. It'll take them many years in order to be able to take troops and munitions and things like that and aim them there. And remember too,
I also think that hopefully, if while they're talking peace, nobody's fighting, I think that's a victory in itself.
That's going to be the problem because of the meltdown that happened in the Oval Office there.
Yeah, I know, and I'm hopeful that saner heads will prevail.
Now you got to hand it to Zelensky; he's trying very hard to protect his country.
Oh, he is. I'm not doubting that.
Yeah, and this business about him being a dictator and ungrateful and all that is just a lie. It's just a complete, total lie.
He's not exactly, let's put it this way, let's be blunt about it. He's not exactly the world's greatest Democrat, is he?
How did you know? How would you know, and how would you gauge that?
That's a fair question.
All right. Let's put things into perspective here. He got into government. He defeated one of the oligarchs to get into government. He was elected.
Yeah.
And during those times, he wore a suit and was clean shaven, by the way. Okay.
Yeah.
And then the USSR invaded in 2014. They've been fighting since 2014. Don't forget, this goes way back, much longer than when they invaded. Huge, and they did kind of the same thing they did to Georgia. Basically, first take this Donbass and that Donbass, and then it's crushed the country, and that's what Putin has tried to do. Now, Putin has really good reasons for that. And the West and the United States in particular have been pushing Ukraine into NATO. That's an existential threat to Russia. If Ukraine had stayed neutral, they would have been safe. But it was the West that pushed them into this, and now the West is responsible for getting them out of it, in my view. Now, and the United States has signed a deal with them back in 1994, January of 1994, that they would protect Ukraine's sovereignty if they gave up their nuclear weapons, which they did. Yeah. And the UK also signed that. But all they did was piecemeal weapons. And Joe Biden didn't even let Zelensky use some of the weapons that he wanted, like longer range missiles and stuff. So Joe Biden sort of micromanaged that war and would only let Zelensky use certain things that put him at a disadvantage. Now Zelensky is saying, look, things are getting pretty bad here because Trump is taking the side of Russia. And that's the only way to quickly end this war, if Russia and the United States decide what's going to happen to Zelensky. And we saw this when the U.S. and Russia met in Saudi Arabia. Where was Ukraine?
Yeah, but again, I think that things developed over the weekend when Zelensky went to this European summit, and UK and France have obviously been working on this particular concept for quite some time. And when they revealed Sunday morning that they would be working on a peace plan, and with the intention of presenting it to Trump, I think that changed certain things.
Well, Zelensky would look like a traitor if he gave up his country to the terms Trump wants. And he can't sell that to his own people, and he doesn't like it. He doesn't think it's a good deal, and he will never be able to sell it to his people. That's why Trump wants him out. That's why they want these elections, so they can get rid of Zelensky, put a puppet in, and make the terms of the deal. So
one of the important things here is that Keir Starmer was basically making the point that he says that he believes we're at a crossroads in history, and Europe must do much of the heavy lifting in this. And he's also added that much of the discussions they had at the weekend, particularly about building a coalition, is on the basis that this is a plan that we will work with the US, and we will have US backing for it to go ahead. My concern therefore, is given the entire weekend, pretty well half of the world on Facebook was condemning the US and Trump as being lapdogs of Putin.
Well, it looks that way.
How does that go? You know, we've got two diametrically opposed positions here.
Look, Trump's a Machiavellian, and what he understands in his first, and I agreed with him in his first term that they should warm relations up with Russia so that the Russians could feel more secure in what they're doing. And Russia has felt that the Ukraine and Georgia, the invitations for them to join NATO was an existential threat to their country. And he was right. And NATO had no business doing that. If they had made Russia feel a little bit more secure, all those places would be safer right now. But I think also that at a time when we're going to come up against China in a big way, we need Russia on our side. I think that's what Trump is thinking. We need Russia in our corner. And if you are a Machiavellian, a cold-blooded Machiavellian, which I think Trump is, he sees what Machiavelli saw in the old days. If you're a major power and there are two other major powers, you side with the weaker of the other two major powers so you can team up on the other big one. That's what Machiavelli said. Do not team up with, if you're the big power and another big power, and the two big powers team up against the third lesser power, then eventually it won't work. You'll split that up, and then you'll end up fighting. But if you team up with the weaker of the three powers, eventually you'll be able to overcome.
Yeah, but again, both China and the US are playing that game.
Well, we forced Russia into China's hands. They were at odds before the Ukrainian war.
Yeah.
So the fact of the matter is the West has got Ukraine into this problem. The West, the USA, and its guarantee of sovereignty for the Ukraine, and then not only stepping up piecemeal with weapons, not troops, and not even all the best weapons, because it turned its back on that. And the UK was part of that deal too. And where are they now?
Yeah, and
talking about bringing troops, peacekeeping troops. The fact of the matter is, you're going to have combat troops in there if you're going to protect what's left of Ukraine, and you're going to have to engage those combat.
But again, what they're talking about here is peacekeeping. They're trying to actually broker a peace deal of some kind.
Well, Russia right now is holding all the cards because it's got Trump in his pocket.
Yeah, it's true. It does. So I don't know how they're going to manage to do this. And you know, one of the questions though is that out of all of this deal at the weekend, European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said one of the things that is needed in Europe at this particular time is a comprehensive plan to rearm Europe. So we need to basically bring European armaments, etc., up to date. And they're basically saying that they're screamingly out of date. You know.
Yes, because they've ignored it, and because they've
done the same as we have about ignoring our armaments, our arms needs.
Yeah, they did that because they were relying on the U.S. Now this is their fault because they were just kind of leaning on the U.S. But it's also the U.S.'s fault for telling everybody we will protect you. We will protect you. We're don't bother getting your own nuclear bombs. No, we'll protect you. No, they're not protecting anybody. And there's another factor of this too. Trump is beginning to change the U.S. from a republic to an empire, basically. He is imperialistic now. He has territorial designs on Greenland, and I fear
And
what he's going
Canada.
to do. I fear what he's going to do is he's going to tell China. He says, "Okay, you take Taiwan, and I won't bother with that, and I'll take Greenland and Canada, and you look the other way on that. And hey, Russia, you take a hunk of Ukraine or Estonia or whatever, and I'll look the other way on that, and we'll split up the world in 3 pieces. This is yours. This is mine. All right, we can make that agreement, just like the Berlin Conference when the European powers divided up Africa without asking the Africans back in the 1880s.
Yeah. Well, and rather like the agreement between the Yalta agreement between Churchill, Stalin, and Roosevelt.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, they divided up spheres of influence, and but of course Stalin didn't abide by that.
Yeah. Right. Okay. So Randy West is saying, don't worry. All the same people invested in the stock markets are recognizing that Trump is an idiot without a realistic plan, and they will remove their investments and show everyone who's actually boss. And it is not Trump. Yeah. And we'll get to the stock market stuff later on.
Well, let me just say this, that Trump's imperialistic attitudes towards Iceland and Canada are the distractions that dictators like to use. Now, he is playing like a dictator in many people's views.
Yeah.
And what do dictators do when the economy is not?
Yeah, it's like watch my hand over here, and don't look at what I'm doing. Don't look at what I'm doing in this corner, okay?
Yeah.
You know?
So this
is the real crime, but just pay attention over here.
Yeah, that's what they do. Now, his first big victory in his mind was changing the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. That to him was some sort of victory. But that's an indication what he's looking for. He's looking for a victory. Now that, of course, he can just say. But the next victory will be to well, they did have a minor victory in the Panama Canal, and you could understand why they did, because the 75% of the shipping of the Panama Canal is American. That's becoming less relevant with all the other routes, although that'll take some time. Yeah. And he wants to have imperialistic victories, territorial victories, and I think that's part of the reason why he's talking to Russia the way he is. Look, you keep this big hunk of Ukraine you have, and you look the other way when I go force Greenland into my pocket. So,
yeah. Okay. All right. Moving on. Trade war retaliation from Mexico, Canada, and China is occurring right now, of course. And we've seen a number of examples. So basically, retaliation from Mexico, Canada, and China sent the financial markets into a tailspin. Trump imposed 25% tariffs on all of those goods, and he also doubled the tariff on Chinese stuff to 20%. And Beijing retaliated with a tariff of 15% on a wide array of US farm exports. So there's tit for tat going on, and probably, as you said, crossing the border, every truck's being inspected.
Well, that was what I saw last night.
Yeah,
it may not be that way every day, because it was a setup alongside the road. It wasn't look like a formal inspecting place at all. So I don't know what that was about, but
yeah,
I would imagine it was partly to do with border security, the ramped up border security.
But when you came back, was there any issue? Were you stopped because of the trucks taking up one lane across the entire bridge?
No, not at all. By the time I got back, that had all sorted itself out. I didn't
Oh,
notice
yeah.
any trucks being
It
backed
was
up.
probably they occasionally when I've crossed the border there,
This
there have
was at the
been,
Peace Bridge, by the way.
yeah, no, I get it. Occasionally, what you get is there are tip-offs that go on either direction, and I've seen times where there shouldn't be a backup, where they are backed up across the bridge, and you're kind of wondering why. Yeah, at other times there's hardly anything crossing the bridge.
Yeah.
And I think what happens there is they often have these kind of either there's law enforcement people following something or suspicion of something, suspicion of, let's say if you had a suspicion of a drug load being moved across the border and you had a generalized description of what type of truck you were looking for, you just basically trap them all in a net until you get the one.
Yeah, you get tip-offs, and these tip-offs
Yeah.
usually come from people who've been like a drug dealer or a drug distributor who
Yeah.
now has to make a deal. Have to make a deal, so his prison sentence is a lot less than it's going to be. So they say, okay, we put it in trucks with mattresses. So look for that, and the mattresses are ABC mattresses that are made in Mexico. So that's where we put our drugs. So look out for that. And they cross the Peace Bridge, so that's what they do, kind of
Yeah.
thing. That's kind of, and plus all kinds of other intelligence. The intelligence against all this is happening quite a bit now.
And
We
that's
do
all,
know, we do notice that
yeah.
as our answer to Trump, in 1 month, the minor amount of fentanyl that has gone from Canada, less than 1%, as we're told all the time,
And I'm
from
not
the
saying,
Americans, has been reduced by 93% in just that 1 month. So the argument that Trump is using for these tariffs, the legal argument that he's using for the tariffs, is
it's null
nearly
and,
non-existent. Like,
yeah, it's nearly non-existent, null and void almost. Yeah, exactly. And it's more the other way around than anything else. We've already always known that. All right. So with that trade war, okay, I've got 3 comments here. Watch the stock markets today.
General Motors will close.
Yeah. Okay. Trump will back off today, I bet, says Mike. The inspections are MTO and only have to do with the mechanics of commercial vehicles coming into Canada. Okay, so that possibly what was going on yesterday. That's another reason for inspections, of course, is to make sure that the vehicles are up to standard. And they have the right to do that at any time.
Yeah.
Right?
So I don't know the nature of the inspections that were happening. There were border services doing it. It appeared to me. So I don't know. There was a big like I said, it was a big back off coming from the States into Canada. But by the time the game was over, we came back roughly around 10 o'clock ish. It was all cleared up. The border was a lot less voluminous, basically, than I remember. For even for a lacrosse game, there was more people. Although there was less people at this particular game because there were 2 lousy teams than there was.
I thought you said it was a hockey. I thought you said it was a hockey game.
What?
You said hockey, didn't you?
What did I say? I said that the going across the border after a lacrosse game is more difficult than going across for this particular hockey game because
Sorry, I misheard you.
The game was not sold out because there were 2 lousy teams.
Yeah.
And so it made it easier overall. We got into town and we got out of town in quite easily in a lot less time than we normally would have for any game. And like I said before, we got more difficulty getting out of the area after a lacrosse game because lacrosse fills that, like the Bandits fill that arena because they're a really good team. and they have a strong following from both Americans and Canadians. So anyway,
did you listen to Trudeau's speech yesterday?
yeah, part of it. He pretty much called Trump a dummy, and I think the reason why he did call him a dummy because he wants him on edge. Trump, when he starts flaring at the nostrils, says dumb things a lot, and I think that was part of the part. Well, he can get away with it because he's a lame duck prime minister.
Yeah, yeah.
Then he can call Trump a dummy. But first of all, he says, "Trump, you're a really smart guy, but you're a dummy." So he's mixed messages there. Oh yeah, you're really well. You like to be complimented, so I'm going to compliment you and tell you how wonderfully smart you are, and but then tell you that you're a dummy.
Yeah, one of the things that I noted about that is he broke his speech down into three distinct areas. One, he was addressing Donald Trump and, of course, the political leadership in the US. But the other thing is he then broke down and he said, to our American friends, right, to address the American people individually. And then he broke that speech further down and said, to address my Canadian, Canadian people, right? So I thought that was well done.
I didn't see the whole speech, but I saw Ford's, which was much more. You want to fight? We're going to fight you. He says, "You punch us, we'll punch you twice as bad, you bastard." Like I love that what Ford was done. You want to fight? I'll give you a fight. We love Americans, he says. I've lived there for 20 years, and this is just bollocks. And we're not blaming the American people. We love the American people. This is down to one man.
And okay, I accept to exactly what you're saying, Randy. 100%. Yes, he's a drama teacher, and that led to his ability to put that speech together and do it in a really well crafted manner. And I applaud him for that. And Dave is absolutely 100% right that he's a lame duck prime minister right now. So he's going out of power in a few days anyway. And at the end of the day, once the Liberals have made their mind up on March 9th, we will have a new prime minister. So what? We've got 4 more days.
Yeah, it'll be Mark Carney, and but suspect that Chrystia Freeland will come in. Basically, will come in and join forces with Mark Carney.
And Randy, absolutely spot on. $40 billion over budget drama teacher. That's got to be the best show in history, isn't it? It's got to be the best show in history for anybody who's put on a play, right? $40 billion over budget. It must have been the best show in the world.
I don't know. The Trump drama is he is really a drama queen. The way he does things, he blows off, he lies, he exaggerates. The whole world is against us. They're taking advantage of us, that kind of thing. Zelensky is a dictator. He's a tin pot dictator. He started the war. That kind of thing that Trump gets away with. I think he's more of a drama guy than anything. He's playing this character that he played in The Apprentice, so he's
absolutely he is a drama guy. He is always, I think his whole life has been, when you consider he's a real estate guy who suddenly discovered television and the power of TV, and that ability to use TV to actually help him make a better and better deals, I think has been Trump's whole life.
He's a pipsqueak. He's a pipsqueak, though. Really, there's lots of rumors that when his businesses were failing back in the 90s, he went to Russia and he got oligarch money and he helped them launder it through his Trump Towers. They provided the money to build them, and then they bought the condos without identifying who they were, and that was their way of laundering massive amounts of money. I don't know how true that is, but that's
that was one of the allegations that was made on the on the Dirty Money episode against Donald Trump. Thing is about it, though, is that when you look at what Dirty Money said, when Dirty Money had this big episode about all of the things, Dirty Money was commentary about a lot of people who utilized big money, like Bernie Madoff, who made off with millions and eventually went to prison for it. Where the Dirty Money episode about Donald Trump, I would say, was bad journalism.
Yeah, so there's nothing solid there. I've just read things about it, and I don't want to make
rant. It was a rant how bad they believe Donald Trump to be, and I have to put it out there. It was bad journalism.
Well, I didn't see the episode myself. Yeah. I just read other things.
It's ancient. It was dealing with it. It ended when he took the first oath of office. So it was that old.
Yeah, so it really hasn't gained much traction. Yeah. But he's a pipsqueak when it comes around to businessmen. So his big thing is, I make deals. I'm a sensational deal maker and all that. No, he's not. Not really. He's like, maybe he's got $1 or $2 billion. Look at the people in his orbit. Yeah. Elon Musk has 200 times more of the wealth of Donald Trump. Bezos has 200 times more of the wealth than Trump. George Soros has 200 times more of the wealth that he does. Zuckerberg, the guys that are in his orbit, Bezos, Zuckerberg, Gates, who is not particularly in his orbit, has 200 times more wealth than. Yeah. These guys are 200 times the businessman that he is, 200 times the deal maker that he is. So
okay. Let's put this one up because everybody's got to hear this one. I shook hands and sat with Trump in Atlantic City in '98. I felt like I needed a shower afterwards. I just read your statement, Randy. I felt like I needed a shower when I read the statement. Sorry, I'll be back in a minute. No, yeah, exactly. So, and I get why some people might feel that way, and I suspect that you feel that way because you've got a conscience, Randy. Right?
Yeah,
and the Premier is a drug supplier, according to the Globe and Mail, and this is our country. Right. Yeah. And Kip Finn is asking, is Trudeau going to cancel the carbon tax or that will cripple Canada if the tariffs go through? I doubt it.
Yeah, well, the carbon, all manner of charges on any product or any service, including the carbon tax, is being viewed by the Americans as a charge against their goods, even though it's fairly charged across the board. So they're looking at everything, any kind of surcharge that might be, and they'll call that, and they'll tariff. They call that something contrary to free trade or whatever.
There was
it's going to get dirty.
Yeah. Somebody was talking about ships that are going up and down through the Great Lakes system. My understanding.
John Ringo Beam.
Yeah, my understanding about ships is that a ship, if it's departing from Port A in country A, it only gets tariffed when it lands at Port B in country B.
Where it delivers its goods.
Yeah. Tariffed. It doesn't get tariffed as it goes up and down locks and that type of thing.
No, the ship gets charged a fee. The ship gets charged a fee. Nobody goes on the ship and says, "Okay, I got to put a tariff on this, this, and this."
No, right? Exactly. The ship gets charged a fee to go through the system, right?
Yeah.
And it's not the captain handing over a couple of $100 on it as he goes through. It's the shipping company gets charged it automatically.
Yeah, like for instance, going through the Panama or Suez Canal, you're not charged. You're going through Egypt or Panama. You're not charging any tariffs on that kind of stuff. You got to wait till you land and disembark.
Yeah. And you know, there are fees for canals, but they're collected independently. So basically what will happen is, as you're going through the Panama Canal, as you're going through the Great Lakes system, every month Algoma pay a bill, you know, or whatever the shipping company is. They pay a bill, right?
Yeah, there's nothing to do. Not until you land at the destination. Yeah. And a big ship, a big cargo ship, may have 100 of its 200 containers to go to port B in China. So those would get offloaded, and if there's tariffs applicable, they would put on there, and then they would load up 100 more from China so they could take it to somewhere else and begin to offload the cargo here and there.
Yeah.
So,
and even
where they land and unload their cargo, that is where the government will then apply the tariff.
But actually, there's also, remember, there's land, as in it is arriving here in Toronto, and that's its port of final destination. And that's different than offloading containers in Montreal, because now they have to be loaded on a ship to, you know, to New York.
It depends. It depends on you know, if there's a transfer point, no, there wouldn't be any tariffs. Obviously, it's pretty much common sense, basically. Yeah. So going through, that was a interesting point that John Ringo Bing brought up, that, you know, if you keep going through international waters, you know,
eventually it could change.
Tariffs.
That could change.
That I doubt it very much. You just get charged for.
I think what'll end up happening is maybe somebody will put the transit, you know, the prices up, you know, the prices through the canals up.
I don't think so, because it affects our own economy too. You got to use common sense here.
Yeah. So it's inflationary. That's the issue about that, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
So the canal could be weaponized. The Welland Canal and the St. Lawrence Seaway could be weaponized, but I doubt it very much.
Yeah, and it doesn't make trade sense to do that, right?
No.
Right, not on top of everything else we've got going, right?
Well, you never know. You know, Trump was bound to say, "I'm going to make the Welland Canal great again." And he's going to demand the Welland Canal.
Yeah, and somebody's going to say the Welland Canal's in Canada, sir. Oh, is it?
No, I like to propose this. Like, what are the good, the bad, and the ugly of Donald Trump in his very short period of time that he's been in power? Now, I hate to say this, but the good part of it is he's galvanized Canada. He's really sort of talked us into reality. He's got us talking about trading interprovincially. He's got us talking about trading internationally more than we do. Yeah. All these things have been brought up in previous times, but all just sloughed off because we're too damn lazy to do anything about it. Particularly interprovincial trade, which is just damn stupid. If we have to pay more in basically charges across the country than we do going into a completely different country. He's also got us the border patrols up and where they should be.
Yeah. We've been deficient in that. We have to stick our hands up and admit it.
Yeah. So that's the good. The bad is that the manner in which he's doing it. He's pushing a gun into our face. He's demanding. He wants annexation. He wants to destroy the Canadian economy or weaken it so much that we have no choice but to join the United States. And of course, he's trying to become the imperialist and take on Greenland. Now, the Greenland thing is very special because they already have a deal. It goes way back to the 40s, where the United States has has rights to Greenland's defense and its own defense, and that deal has been made and continues to be made. So Trump's idea that we need it for defense when you already have a strong deal, that's it.
Yeah.
I
I
would
think
I would
I
note
think
to
that
the I would note to the Greenlanders though. Look what happened to Hawaii. Hawaii used to belong to Hawaiians, and when the Americans took over in the 1890s, the Hawaiians live in little places here and there around the island. They're completely dominated and subjugated. They did not get a fair deal out of that. That will happen to Greenland too. You will be washed away in American presence. You will become a lesser person in your own country. American interests will take over. American settlers will come, and you will lose your autonomy completely. So,
yeah,
you can avoid it. Do not join the
Well,
United States.
and the
You
population,
will be just shoved to the side, just like the Hawaiians were.
yeah, and the population of Greenland will grow under an American, if it's under an American flag.
Yeah, it would be mining interests, all kinds of other
Yeah,
things,
yeah.
and the
They may
people.
not be permanent population, but every time there's a mining interest going on, that tends to end up with people staying permanently.
The people will be pushed aside and minimized. At first, they'll be attracted with presents and glitter, cake and ice cream kind of thing, and then once it starts, they'll just be shoved to the side and become irrelevant.
Well, the irony here is those are the complaints that Greenlanders have against Denmark right now.
Exactly. They want their independence from Denmark. Right now, they're hooked. Well, they're an autonomous region of Greenland.
Yeah, but they make these accusations. I was doing some reading a few months ago about that, and they make these accusations about about Denmark regularly.
Yeah, and so they're looking for independence, and Denmark does not have any problems with their eventual independence. They have to be a little bit more self-sufficient. Denmark gives them $500 billion a year. They can't exist without that at current
exactly.
rate. So what Trump's going to do is says, I'll give you all $1 billion instead of the 500 billion.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, the ugly. What is the ugly part of Trump? So the good, the bad, and the ugly. Well, the ugly part is his lies, his inflaming people, things like the dictator thing, his ability to sway people to his opinion. So many that soon as Fox says that Zelensky's a dictator, everybody believes it because Trump says he says it.
Well, here's the other side of ugly, Dave. The Dow Jones dropped 650 points yesterday.
We'll see if that trend continues.
I know.
It could. If Doug Ford does stuff like withhold nickel, that could really upset the apple cart. Right now, the United States, this is supposed to encourage, one of the things he wants, all the cars made in the United States. Doesn't need Canadian and Mexican cars. Well, that can't be done that quick because these factory setups they have, the whole system is worth billions of dollars. Billions. Of dollars. And in order to dismantle a factory and then construct it in a different place takes years.
Yep. Oh, yeah. It's not going to happen tomorrow. It's not going to happen even in the Trump government lifetime.
Yeah. And plus, he's just an ugly guy, the way he operates. He operates with threat. He operates with threats, not negotiations.
Yeah.
He's withholding U.S. aid for starving people right now. And that U.S. aid has been part of the U.S. process for many, many years. Now, there might be corruption in it. Of course, there is. There's corruption in every aspect of government. But to willy-nilly start chopping off U.S. aid and withholding U.S. aid in the way of medicines and food that many countries have depended on, and which has been a source of U.S. soft power, is cold and vicious and ugly, because
Yeah.
He could say the American, oh look, I stopped this U.S. aid thing. You know, it was just a big hole. Well, he's not telling you what it actually does. He's not telling you that U.S. farmers require the U.S. government to buy their crops and send them out for U.S. aid. That's being the deal. You don't suddenly stop that. You do it gradually if you have to stop it, or so that's the ugly part of Trump.
Yeah.
Well, he's mostly ugly guy.
Yeah, and for example, the deals that Doug Ford has been working on for these battery plants, for the EV plants, etc., coming to Ontario, none of these plants are going to be ready up and running within 5 years anyway, right?
There's all kinds of issues here.
Yeah,
and like I said before, the whole, like particularly the big three have used the USMCA, and prior to that the NAFTA, and prior to that the Auto Pact. They have used these, and once the USMCA's come up, they built their factories and did everything they did according to Donald Trump's most perfect trade plan, probably the best trade deal ever created, in his own words. So that's how they've based it, and now he's pulling this off. That's
yeah. And Randy basically makes the point: if all cars do get made in the USA, who in Canada will be able to afford to buy them in Canada? He eliminates his own market with every word he spews, and that's ugly.
Well, yeah. What he doesn't realize, if he, well, that's why the Trudeau made this point, and others have made the point. It has nothing to do at all with fentanyl.
Yeah.
What it has to do is to eviscerate the Canadian economy, so that Canada was forced to join the United States. He has territorial imperialistic ideas, and he's trying them on for size.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens. We'll see.
Right. Supply and demand only works when people can afford to buy what you've built. Absolutely. And that's part of the strength, and it's part of the strength and part of the weakness of the capitalist system.
Yeah. So Trump's got 4 years in office, and he's going. If his sycophants keep looking at him and just bowing to every one of his demands, he will get another term in office, which is contrary to the Constitution. But if you have members of your own government that will not stand up to you, then you're lost. So pretty soon the Republicans have to find a voice. They're going to have to find. They're going to have to stop being so spineless and stand up to the guy.
And again, one of the other aspects about the Dow Jones dropping, if the Dow continues to drop over the next few days, it's actually Trump's own personal wealth is going to take a hit as well.
Well, like I say, he's a pipsqueak billionaire compared to the other billionaires.
Yes.
George Soros could outdeal him with his baby finger, with two hands tied behind his back in a dark room. Basically, so could Elon Musk, so could Bezos, so could Gates.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
He's a real pipsqueak billionaire. It's even doubtful that he even has more than $1 billion. But he talks about deals. He's not the best deal maker, obviously. These other people are. Why does he need to get Bezos or Musk or George Soros? Well, George Soros up.
That's why he's got Musk in his government, isn't it?
And also, it must be pointed out that Warren Buffett has called this an act of war, a brutally stupid thing the tariffs done. Warren Buffett, one of the previously the richest man in the world, and still one of the most richest men in the world, has called this whole tariff thing an act of war, a blatant act of war, and a foolish thing to do.
Yeah, okay. And also, I'm going to point out something that Randy is saying here. Government does not run companies. Private business runs companies, 100%. And you know, and essentially what I said just a minute ago is very true. That if the Dow falls and it's Trump's investments, then he's going to, you know, he's going to react differently.
I don't think it has much to do with Trump at all. It's the other ones that are losing money that's going to put the pressure on him.
Yeah. Okay.
It's the other billionaires basically that are going to put the pressure on him. They're the governors, everyone else. So if the stock market completely starts to keep going down like it is, this doesn't look good for Trump's policies. It is also making the powerful business people in the United States put pressure on him. I don't think he's too worried about his own pocketbook at this point. He's in on cloud nine of mighty power. You know, he's the dictator. That's what's intoxicating him right now.
Yeah. No. Okay. So then the other question that we've got to move on to is Ontario ripped up the Starlink deal. Yeah,
good on Ford. They had a deal with Starlink. They're going to dump that. It's only $100 million. It's a meaningful sum to a guy like Trump, but to a guy like Musk, it's nothing. It's pocket change. So $100 million deal that's gone out the window. That's more symbolic than anything. The booze and that thing shutting, like the LCBO is the largest single purchaser of alcohol, so they are not buying U.S. alcohol right now, and they're shelved anything that was on their shelves and put it in storage until this is all over. So there's all kinds of symbolic things we can use. Now that will hurt. Go ahead.
I was joking yesterday about hey, damn, they closed this off. There's some Tennessee whiskey. I can't get any Tennessee whiskey. And I had an offer yesterday on Facebook from somebody who was saying, "Yeah, I'll bring you some Tennessee whiskey if you can give me somewhere to stay for the next 4 years." And I'm like, yeah, like I'm gonna be encouraging illegal immigrants in my house. Yeah, that's gonna happen. No.
Yeah. Well, yeah, like people who I do myself.
And this is exactly the point. Betty makes the point. Childish games. Yeah.
Yes. That Gulf of Mexico thing, changing it to the Gulf of Mexico was unbelievably childish. But in his mind, he had a victory. He had a little victory, and he was going to prance around like I don't know, so like some little potentate. Aha, I won. I made the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of America. Number one, why? But it looks like a little victory for him. And his mindless followers think the same thing. Oh, yeah, sure, yeah. Gulf of America is really good. I don't get it. And of course, he's putting pressure on little Greenland. It's 3 times, I think it's 3 times the size of Texas, but little in population. They got like 50,000 people. So he's putting the muscles on them. Yeah, and their colonial power is Denmark, which is a tiny little country, and that's where he's pushing his fist in. But when he comes face to face with Putin, he runs away and he says, Putin says, "I'm mighty," and Trump says, "I'm mightier." But look over here, here's Ukraine. They're pretty small, so let's both bully him, rather than we'll get hurt if we fight each other. But we can bully him.
Right. Quebec, more so than Ontario, is chin deep in between taxing of electricity, because the electricity and lumber are their primary means of provincial income, and Trudeau can overtax that provincial commodity, leaving Canada. Yeah.
Trudeau's not going to do anything.
Trudeau, I don't think he's going to do anything in that regard. But talking about taxing electricity, or, there was another message that I saw out on Facebook yesterday from Occupy Democrats that says, "Hey, Canada, tell Doug Ford that the time to switch off power is 9 p.m. 9 p.m. yesterday when the State of the Union address was going on.
Yeah, well, I do caution you could surcharge the power, but do remember that you do not want to try not to affect the average American person and the average American family directly.
Yeah.
You do not want, because they will take offense to that.
Oh, absolutely.
They will hurt that. It's just like if the Americans did that to us directly,
Yeah.
It is not a good idea, because the average American citizen, like we have said before, 1/2 of the United States voted against Trump. So you have to be very careful. You do not want anybody else in his case to you.
Hey, Dave, as if you could turn off switch number 15 in Adam Beck Power Station and suddenly the White House goes dark. Ain't going to happen, is it? Because we know the White House has got, instant, the White House is probably the one place that is going to stay brightly lit, even if the power goes out.
Oh, God, they could generate their own power with all the hot air that's coming out of the orange guys.
That's true as well. Okay, so just one final thing about Greenland's not for sale. 23-year-old farmer, fisher, and tour company owner says that he's worried. His concern is that Trump's going to come and take Greenland. And he says, Greenlanders don't want to be Danish. We certainly don't want to be American.
Yeah, they want to be. They're better off uniting with Canada if you want to make a deal. They become a semi-autonomous part of Canada because they have a lot more in common with the Inuit.
The Inuit and the Greenlanders way more in common. Yeah.
So I think they should be guaranteed protection from everyone and let them develop on their own and keep all the mighty powers out. Now they can't keep the U.S. out because they already made a deal with them, and that's for their own security too. But it's up to the Greenlanders what they want to do. But the problem is Trump's going to go in there with bangles and baubles and cake and candy and tell them how wonderful it is. And if they do get seduced, then they'll just shove him aside after he gets it. Unfortunately, that's the way it goes. But they already have military bases there, and they have the rights to military bases through that treaty. Although, what's a treaty these days? No treaty seems to be any good anymore because, the United States and the UK have not really obliged the treaty they signed with Ukraine back in 1994, have they? So what's a treaty these days?
But maybe that's behind what Keir Starmer's actions are over the weekend.
Well, we're pretty late to the game, unfortunately.
I know. I'm not going to criticize what you say there, Dave. Not in the least, right?
Yeah, I think Ukraine was just set up to fail by the West, and the West
they were very much. Yeah, very much set up to fail, and that angers a lot of people.
Yeah, and Trump is just an ignorant man, and I don't know. I mean, that whole thing about Gaza, and he's going to make it a big resort, and he's going to own it. Oh, Jesus!
No, yeah, really, that's a whole bad step in the wrong direction. All right, and this individual who they interviewed for this article, he said, "You'll hear this declared all over the land from the Prime Minister and university students in Nuuk, the world's northernmost capital, to hunters and fishermen in sparsely populated villages across the planet's largest island. This is, after all, Kalalit Nunat, Greenlandic for the land of the people or the land of the Greenlanders."
Yes, and remember, look, if the Greenlanders then try to migrate to the United States, I mean, there's only 50,000 of them, but will he? Like, one of the ugly things about Trump is when he talks about the migrants coming over the border, he says they
Yeah.
are poisoning our blood. They are poisoning our blood. That sounds very much like what the fascists talked about the
That's
Jews.
about exactly. That's about white supremacy, isn't it?
No, I'm not even sure it's white supremacy, but it is definitely a fear tactic.
Yeah.
And particularly, he
You
never explains any of his comments.
You mean
What do you mean by poisoning the blood? They're poisoning our blood. That's his answer.
Yeah. So basically, what you're saying is American blood, whether it's black, white, Chinese, native, is being poisoned because of somebody new coming into the country.
Yeah. My biggest cautionary tale to Greenland: look at what happened to Hawaii.
All right. Yep, you're right, and I think we can leave it at that point.
All right. Without further ado, I bid you do pray for peace and pray for Trump slipping and falling and hitting his head and